Hello there. I hope you can see me on this workshop of our webinar in managing remote workers. So the purpose of this presentation is to explain the best practices and knowledge we've gained in RemoteMore about managing remote workers. And so the agenda for this presentation will be that in the first 30 minutes I will present content and slides on managing remote workers, and then in the next 30 minutes you have chance to show and ask your questions in the comment box on YouTube. So right now I will share my screen with the slides I prepared, and I will systematically go to each slide. So if you have any questions, I'll be willing to answer them after the presentation. So now I'll share my screen with the slides. If you just bear with me, and I'll present it. And we go here with the slides. And just yeah. Now share. Present. All right. So, as mentioned, the topic of today's webinar is managing remote workers, and first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Boris Krastev, the CEO and co-founder of RemoteMore, and what we do with RemoteMore is that we help and empower companies and developers to work remotely together. So we believe in a future where more and more people work remotely. So we want to support this vision, and we believe that more and more developers will work remotely together. So we are supporting this future. But first of all, what's remote work, and how do we define remote work at RemoteMore? So with us, remote work is not freelancing. We believe that the future is working remotely full time. So in that sense, freelancing is a bit different than how we frame it. It's definitely not outsourcing, because we see this need for companies to work with people who are well integrated their team, who care about their product, and people who are not just producing some code and delivering it afterwards. And remote work doesn't mean that you have crazy schedules where you don't have any overlap in your program. Remote work also doesn't mean that you have crazy time zones and you cannot work together. So quite the contrary, often with RemoteMore we would encourage companies and developers to work in time zones such that they have at least 4 hours of overlap. So the way we define remote work is like office work, but just done outside of the office. So why would you like to hire remote employees? There are many great benefits of working remotely, but the first one that comes to our mind is that you would like to hire remotely because there is simply a really big access to candidates. So simply when you do the numbers compared to the local market, when you hire on a global scale, there's more talent, and there is also access to better candidates. So because you can get more people on board, you can put more requirements on your search, so you can get better candidates. And thirdly, there is this increase of employee productivity because so many developers think and so many people think that when you work remotely, there is this friction and there is this trust that you need to build in your team. So the productivity is actually works this way, that people would actually force themselves to deliver more so they can show that this system of working remotely actually works. So we've noticed patterns where companies who come back and say that they've seen increased productivity in their teams. And fourthly, there is also higher engagement, simply because there is a friction in working remotely. And this is in terms of communication. The person who is behind the screen has to really put some effort to make the relationship working. So, and I actually believe that when you work remotely, this is actually a more transparent way of working than you do it in the office. And there is also increased employee retention. So, because you remove the frictions of hiring people, and just to give an example, if somebody wants to relocate to another country because he or she has get some marriage, or they had to move to relocate somewhere else because of whatever reason, you can just let this person work remotely and still keep her in your team. There are actually, if some of you is wondering by now, if there are companies that will remotely distribute. Yes, there are many great examples of remote companies. So we've run a talk with Zapier where we share their case and of how they work remotely. Most of you probably know that there is this company called Basecamp, who are one of the early companies to work distributedly. At RemoteMore, we work distributedly as well, and there are actually many great examples of remote companies. So some of you are wondering if working remotely is that great. How can you make it work? So with hiring remotely, you need to hire people who have good autonomy, who are independent, proactive, and reliable. So who are very emotionally stable. So these are people who are capable of being balanced and calm and self-confident, and actually working independently. And thirdly, I'll just check something out. And just checking if you can hear me. I guess you can. So I just thought that you can hear me. Yeah, and there is this also ability to communicate. I know that many people think that when they work remotely, you need to. I think there are many people who actually think that when you work remotely, you need to be a really good communicator, because without any communication, it's really difficult to show how the work process is being done and to make it really work. And because of that, it's really important that the people who are working remotely, that they have these intercultural skills and are actually capable in speaking English. If your team is not intercultural, and if it's only consisted of homogeneous group of people, then it's okay to stick with one language. But if you're having intercultural or cross borders teams, it's really important that you speak in English. And as often we will call it, it's important that you hire missionaries and not mercenaries. So you often want those people to be part of your team and not be there just to get some money. I'll quickly check something because I feel like I'm missing some slides. And yeah, that's great that you can hear me loud and clear. I just think I'm missing a few slides, which is actually a really important content. So I'll just check it out. All right, I found my slides and it should work now. Cool. And I really didn't want to miss any important stuff because there is really really nice content here. So some of you are probably wondering, so now we've covered and how to manage or why you should hire remotely and what type of people you want to hire. And you probably know what type of people you need to hire. But now you're wondering, so how can we make remote work? And at RemoteMore, we actually found that there is two important things that you need to do in order to make your remote work really successful. And the first one is that you need to integrate the people in your communication flows and in your information flows. And what we mean by this is that with the communication flows, you want to have you want the people to be part of your software. So you want those people to have access to your Slack channel, or to have access to your Zoom channel in such a way that you have very transparent and clear communication. And secondly, you want those people to be integrated in your information flows. And I have a few slides on these types of tools that you can use. In terms of information flows, you can integrate people in your Google Drive or Dropbox folders. About the practicalities, it's often a good idea that you, as mentioned previously, it's a good idea that you have a minimum 4 hours of overlap with your team, and that you should treat working remotely as it is in the office. So in that sense, it's a good idea to fix the working hours, and that, for example, you start at 9 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. So you know that you can rely on those people within these hours. And when the day is off, when the day is over, it's probably a good idea that you communicate within your team how you can switch off. So this has been a really, really big struggle within remote teams. So switching off is really big problem, simply because you have access to your computer, and having your computer with you, it's it's actually causing and it's giving you an opportunity to work any minute. So you need to find a way to switch off. We really like Slack in our startup, so we use it quite a lot. And the way we organize it, that we have set up these Slack statuses. So when you're available, when you're working deep work, when you're away from the keyboard, and when you're offline. And and what we found works really good with us with Slack is that you can set up these channels. There is this general channel, there is this team channel. So for example, there is customer success channel, there is marketing channel, there is, for example, development channel. So these are important channels to have. And the purpose of the random channel is actually to have a and to replace the water cooler, what you usually have in the physical offices. So it's a channel just to post stupid things, as we like to call them at RemoteMore, and actually to just bind the whole team together. And the fourth channel we found works really good for us is the appreciation channel. So in there, I will post good things about the rest of our team members, what they've done great, and we really appreciate it. And this has been super important for us because we've seen the need of actually showing the rest of the team that there is this appreciation of their work. I also mentioned and touched upon the English skills. So intercultural skills are also super important, and being able to socialize not only with your remote coworkers, but also people who are working with you in the office. So in that sense, it's a good idea that you invest a bit of money on your workspace, in your equipment, and having good connection. Because if you're having slow computer or bad internet, it really hurts productivity in remote work. And there is also this need to onboard the people. So it's probably a good idea if you have some office that you fly the people in your office so they could get the ground going. And consider that you can meet with your coworkers on retreats. So this would be typically 2 weeks retreats, twice a year, where you could actually meet and work the whole group together and build this physical relation as well. So in terms of cultural values, you should always assume good intentions with your team. So you should always have this attitude that your coworkers are working and that they're actually putting their best in making the work relationship work. So if somebody is not replying to your messages, it's probably that they're busy or that they're doing something, and it's not that because they're not working. And in general, with remote work, you should focus on results and not hours. So, and this is where the part I really like about remote work is that you can focus on bringing really true productivity and not just faking being in the office and be there for 8 hours, for example. Over communication is really good. So whenever you think that you are over communicating in remote work, it's actually quite the opposite. It's probably a good idea that you communicate more and more. About the communication tools, I also touched upon Slack, and I mentioned Google Drive and Dropbox. But in RemoteMore, we use instant messaging tools as Slack. We know that there is HipChat, and recently Microsoft rolled out a copy-paste to Slack, which is called Microsoft Team or Office. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it, but it has something to do with Teams. It's literally the same way and looks the same way as Slack, but it's within the Microsoft ecosystem. And there is this video calls, and there is we use remote Zoom, which is really good because you could also integrate it with Slack, and whenever somebody wants to jump in a call, they could write /Zoom and just create this virtual room. For deep and more focused communication, it's really good idea that you use emails and write down a really big message that you want to send to that person. For urgent communication, we found that phone calls work really good, but they should be used quite sparingly. So if it's weekend, it's probably not a good idea to contact people because obviously they're having a day off. For the collaboration tools, we found that code sharing works really good. So you create your repository on GitHub, and developers who are working, they could upload the code there and see the different versions of the code. For file sharing, there is this Google Drive, Dropbox, and we use both actually as RemoteMore. So I actually like Google Drive more because I found Dropbox is quite buggy, and Google Drive is just very smooth, though it's not that user-friendly, I would say, but both are really good and work quite good. And for project management tools, at RemoteMore, we use Trello, but I know Asana and Jira are quite similar, so you could also integrate them in your collaborating tools. Other tools are 1Password. So, for example, you could, with 1Password, it's one of those tools where we have never used it, but once you start using it, you've thought, okay, how I have lived until now without 1Password. So, and it's a tool where you can share passwords, organize it among vaults, and it's really good for remote teams because you don't want to share your passwords in a plain text, basically. For virtual whiteboard, we found that real-time board works really good. It's really copy-paste of physical whiteboards, and you could collaborate, and it's really good. I think they actually changed the name from real-time board to Miro, but it's the same product, basically. And there are these tools for screen sharing and for screenshots, which are inbuilt in Mac and Windows. Some of you are probably wondering about the software development process. So you should start from your current process and adjust it for remote. So if you're working on Scrum and you're wondering that it probably doesn't work in remote, it does work, but it needs a bit of adjustment. So before, you've probably have organized Scrum on a whiteboard, and you have done it in this way. And now with remote work, you could organize it in Trello, which is quite similar in that sense. With RemoteMore, what we do is that we have daily stand-ups. We will call each other in the morning, and we organize the workday, which is a really good way to keep the organization going. And we often do video calls and face-to-face communication. So what I mean face-to-face is basically turning your camera on, so you can get started and present what you have to do during the workday. And of course, as mentioned, we use Trello. And one thing we also do is that we organize retreats with our team, and we meet face-to-face physically, so we could see ourselves and spend some time together. I've passed this one, and I'll do a shameless plug about what we do with RemoteMore. So with RemoteMore, we help companies become remote ready, and basically we help them implement remote work. So we have academia background, research background, and we also have this practical experience of how remote work should be done. So we help companies become remote ready. And at the same time, we have a hiring platform. So if a company wants to come and hire a remote developer, they can come on our system. They could put a job description, and with job description, developers can see and express interest. And on our when you open the profile of the person, you could see test results and video interview. And the video interview is really good because you can see who the person is behind the screen and just understand how it works for him and what's priority in remote work. And if you're missing something, you could request additional feature, and this feature should suffice your need in terms of hiring. By the end, when you found this person is a good match, you could send a message, start working together, and we're building tools to accommodate for remote work in the future. So if you have any questions, we could take them now, and we could address them. So if you have any questions, I'll be interested to address them. Otherwise, you could find a link to the slides, which is this one. And there, if you go, you could download the slides, and yeah, sure, just shoot it out, and I will address it. Yeah, sure, no worries. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we're based in Berlin, by the way. So for those of you who are wondering, we're in Berlin, yes. Yeah, this is really good question. Just let me know if you have finished the question, and then I could address it. Cool. Yeah. So I'll. Great. Yeah. It's a bit strange that on Google you can't, or YouTube you can't see when the people are writing. So it's actually my first time that I'm using YouTube to stream a webinar. So it's interesting to see how it works. But anyway, I'll take the first one. So you're planning to run a meetup, and you should definitely write me back afterwards. I'll leave my email at the end so I can attend that meetup. But I don't see anything paradoxical if you host a physical meeting in order to promote remote work. I know many people in Berlin are working remotely, especially people in the factory or in co-working spaces. They work remotely with other teams. I know that there are buffer teams in Berlin, so it's totally fine. I mean, these people are here. Their company is somewhere else, and it's distributed around the globe. So I don't think it's paradoxical at all, because you're meeting with the people here and you're trying to spread the word. And oh, cool, yeah. Then we should definitely meet at the factory. But the second part, we're working as a software consultant, and one thing I found that works really good with proving that remote work works is basically go once on that meeting. I don't know how many days you work with these companies, but go once, set up the work structure, and tell them that you feel more productive, that you feel better, that you have a bit more flexible schedule, and then just set up the goals for the week. Tell them what will be done by the end of the week. Keep them in the loop. Set up a Slack channel with them, and basically present at the end of the week the results. And if they have their results and they have achieved their goals, I mean, this shouldn't be a problem. Of course, I don't know what type of work exactly you're doing. It could be that you have to talk with people on site, and you have to actually have physical contact with those people, or if it's producing code and making some software, then I don't see any difference why it shouldn't be. And if you show them that it works in terms of results, then it wouldn't be any problem. But I mean, we could exchange an email and we could meet and talk. This is my email, so shoot me an email. And front end development is what I heard from different companies. Actually, they're more willing to let people work remotely because it's front end, it's not back end. So they could see the progress on the website on when it's been done. So I mean, we could exchange a bit more and talk on this topic, but if you show them results that it works, then it shouldn't be any problem to me, to be honest. Just let me know if this answers your question. Cool. If do we have another question? Cool. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah. To elaborate on what? I just don't get the question. So if you could specify it a bit more. Yeah. So why we think is RemoteMore it's coming and why it's growing. I guess you're writing question and trying to specify it, but I actually think I got your point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get your point. Yeah, it's really bad UX. I'll probably change to something else next time. So that's what we're doing with RemoteMore. We're trying to find a way how companies, how many. Yeah. I get your perspective. That's what we're doing with RemoteMore. We're trying to find what's the missing gap, so that we can help and support companies and to allow remote work more. And yeah, yeah. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to educate the market, and we see that companies understand that it's not really that different than working in the office, and and they see that it's not that different than working in the office, and you could be as productive from wherever you feel the best as you would be in the office. There's just minor problems with it, in terms of paperwork and how to set the trust issue. So, but once they get it that it works, it's not really much convincing. So at the same time, you see even in Berlin and in bigger cities like Copenhagen, in London, especially Silicon Valley, there is this really big hunger for remote developers, or for developers in general. So companies have to accommodate with the needs of the market. And yesterday I was in a call with one really big corporation in Germany, and they told us that they see the gap, and they see the need for more talented people, and the one way they could solve it is through remote work. I mean, they have to accommodate, otherwise they just have empty seats and they can't progress forward. And they understand it. I think it's just a matter of educating the market, and showing this trust relationship that it works. So I think in the next 1 or 2 years it will grow more and more, to be honest. And people shouldn't despair. I mean, there are many job opportunities in working remotely. They could sign up for RemoteMore. They could look at some job boards, and in general just try to talk to companies and find a solution in working remotely. I actually don't have any statistics on what are the percentage of people who work in Berlin than London. In general, I've lived in Denmark for about 8 years, um, and many people in Germany say that Germany is very conservative, which I don't entirely agree. It's very open-minded, in my opinion. And I honestly have no data to compare how much remote work there is in Berlin compared to London, to be honest. So if you have any data, cool. I mean, just share it here. But I don't have, so it's really hard for me to speak on this one. Cool. Are there any more questions? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, we could meet and talk about it, and see if that's actually the case, and I could check some data and prepare. Cool. Cool. Yeah. Hey, Vincent. Hey, Jamie. Good to see you in the webinar. I'll just take the questions one by one, and YouTube is not really a good place for webinars. So I'll try to take first Vincent, and then we go to Jamie. So the question is, as someone who works with companies to help them enter the remote world, do you feel the companies are more willing to pay more for workers that work in the office than employees that work remote? Um, I actually have two-fold opinion on that one, and I've seen both behaviors. So I see companies who want to hire people just to save money, which is, I think, really bad attitude, because at the end of the day, you want to hire the best, and simply because they are remote, it doesn't mean that you should pay them less, because they have basically the same skills as your people in the office. So on one hand, I see this behavior that they want to pay less, but I also see people who understand that remote doesn't mean that you should underpay people. So it's actually both ways. There is companies who think they need to underpay, but also companies who think that they should just pay the fair salary. It shouldn't be too much, it shouldn't be too low, but it just needs to be fair. So I've seen both behaviors. And question of Jamie, yeah, it's no worries. I mean, you could also watch the webinar afterwards. So how do you know they're productive and how help them avoid the distraction working from home? Yeah, I agree. There are distractions from working from home, but I personally am not a big fan of working from home. I really like to go to co-working spaces and be among other people. So it's just preferences, and you could structure work day as you work in the office, but just from distance. But one thing that works really good for us is that we are organizing weekly goals. So we'll specify what needs to be done during the week, and with the daily stand-ups, you could see how the progress is going, if there is need for something else. And in general, I always have my Zoom opened, so everybody could join in my room and start talking if they have a need to ask a question. So in that sense, I've really closed the gap for working from distance. And so far it's been really good for us. We've seen great results, and people we've seen great productivity. And if you work from a place where you feel the best, you can avoid the distractions. I hope that this answers your question, Jamie. All right. Is there any other question? Otherwise, you're always free to shoot me an email at Boris at RemoteMore. Yeah, it's really good that you have something to share as well. No, I don't keep my camera the whole day. I actually I have my room opened, and I just have shut it off. I have shut it off my camera and muted my microphone, but I have my headphones on. So when somebody joins, he can say that he's there, and we just start talking. So the camera is shut off. It's just I hear a noise when somebody joins in. Yeah, I mean, creating this work environment is also pretty good. It's Lamea says. I hope I pronounce it well. And I heard also from other people that it works quite good if you have this office environment at home. Yeah, I will check out your link. Okay, so this is your, okay, I opened the link, and this is your work environment. And so yeah, you have a camera, you see that. And what you're actually saying is that, as you see, it doesn't work as easy as it works with a simple webcam. Okay, so the way you do it is that you take the camera and point it out to the whiteboard. All right, yeah. This works really good as well. We have one camera which is okay. So did you? Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, Mirror works quite good, to be honest. Yeah, for me, Mirror works quite good because what I like about it is there is this version control. You could see previous editions of the whiteboard, and it just works quite good for me. But I understand for some of you might not work, but actually pointing the camera, it also works. And we had this idea for a feature on our platform where you could have a 360 degrees camera within your room. So at any point in time, you could just plug in and look at somebody's work environment. But we heard some comments about it, so we haven't implemented it. But I also know that you could just plug in, point the camera to the whiteboard, and it works quite okay as well. Cool. I like the discussion, by the way. I mean, it's really good. I really like these discussions because people share their feedback, and it's really a valuable discussion. Cool. Do we have any more questions? I hope I've answered those questions. But again, I mean, you could always shoot me an email. That's great. That's great. I like your spirit, by the way. You could always shoot me an email here at my email, and if you have any questions, we could discuss them. So don't be afraid. If so, but when the webinar, it doesn't mean that you can't ask more questions. So with that in mind, if there are no more questions, I think I will. Yeah, we should. We should. Just write me an email and we'll figure it out. Cool. If we don't have any questions, so cool. Cool, Amal. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Just add me on LinkedIn. It's super nice and easy to. Yeah, this is my LinkedIn. If somebody wants to add me, just add me there. Hey Vincent, here again. So what is the average size of the average companies that are willing to try remote, big or always small? I was just, there's some error. I'll try again with the link. Just 1 second, I'll address it. I'm just trying to send my LinkedIn. It doesn't work. Whatever. Just shoot me email. Just shoot me email if you have any questions. The question is, what's the average size? I've seen both. So I think because remote work is quite early, it's primarily small companies. But as mentioned yesterday, I had to go with a really big corporation in Germany, and they also want to adopt. They want to adopt remote work, and they're having these discussions among these their companies how we can make it work, because they see that the workforce is more demanding, they want more flexibility, and at the same time there is this super competitiveness for talent. So they definitely understand it, and I think they will be changing in the future. And I've also talked to other big organizations in Germany, and even though there are some barriers to adoption, they're willing to have the dialogue and make it really work. So I think it will be more and more trendy, and as more and more companies are willing to are open to discussion, I think they'll be changing. I know that Stripe recently announced that they will be more remote friendly. So this is just, I think there are about 3,000 employees in Stripe, and it's just an example of companies that are being more open to remote and really want to make remote work work. Cool. But again, if I should be more precise, the average size is probably smaller teams, up to 20 employees. But there is this dialogue in big corporations as well on how to make it work. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for a great question, Vincent. I liked it. Cool. In that in mind, is there any other question that I can address? All right. In your presentation, you showed some tools that can help with remote work. What can you say about security when employees work? Okay, cool. With that question, I don't actually have super sharp answer that one. I know many corporations have VPNs, so you could connect to different networks, and it does secure a good connection. But I actually don't have in mind specific to be honest. But it's good thing to check it out and to see if there is actually such a tool. Maybe some of the viewers have an opinion about this one. I'll be curious to see if somebody has a better answer than me. But if you yeah, I'll check it out, and yeah, feel free to share those tips. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's a completely different webinar in just security. Can you send your LinkedIn because okay, this is this one. Can you share your LinkedIn because I don't think we have it in the comments section. Yeah, it seems like YouTube is not really a good platform for webinars. I probably should reconsider it. Cool. It's really, yeah. Maybe we should, yeah, maybe security is a webinar on its own, a topic to talk about how you can secure remote work in general, when it's from distance, and how can you secure it. So cool. I like the discussion. I'm really positive about it. I think we come up with some really good questions, and at the same time we build up new connections. So yeah, I mean, I'm super open about it, and we could figure it out and do something about it. Cool. Yeah. Is if Yeah, it's thank you for coming up, man. I appreciate it, and it's been very good to have you here and to discuss remote work. I catch with you later. Um, but if there is no more questions, if there is more questions, you could always write me on my email, and I'll take it from there, and we could discuss it. And so I'm very open. I'm always eager to receive more emails and to talk to people. So that'll be great for me as well. Thank you, man. I really appreciate showing up, and thank you for asking questions and being so proactive. Yeah, cool. All right. In that in mind, I'll stop the webinar, and of course there will be a stream of, so the webinar has been streamed, and you could see a record of it, and if you're missing some content. And by the way, yeah, see you on the next webinar. Um, by the way, you can find the slides on this one, so you could download them there, and you could look them through yourself. And I saw that I was missing a few slides, so I'll try to update them and put them in this link, so you can have all the content. But in that in mind, thank you for coming up, and see you next time.